Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you details of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about the Hijab Row. Now, Karnataka is witnessing a huge uproar over the insistence of some Muslim girls to wear hijab in schools and colleges. Now, the controversy erupted after a college in Udupi refused permission to Muslim girls for wearing hijab in classrooms, citing the dress code that was in effect for students. After a 5-day break to cool tensions over the hijab ban controversy, high schools reopened in Karnataka on Monday. As a precautionary measure, the police in Udupi and Mangaluru has imposed prohibitory orders near campuses for 6 days till Saturday. Section 144 or CrPC has been clamped around 200 meters radius of all the high schools from Monday till 19th of February. Meanwhile, the Karnataka High Court resumed the hearing on this matter on Monday. Last week, in an interim order, the Karnataka High Court had restrained students, regardless of their religion or faith, from wearing saffron shawls, scarves, hijab and religious flags in classrooms till further notice. Now, the hearing will resume on Tuesday as well. In today's episode, we'll discuss and analyze various aspects of this issue. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we have with us joining Dr. Zeenat Shaukat Ali is here. She is the Director General of the World Institute of Islamic Studies for Dialogue. We're also joined by Professor Faizan Mustafa, Vice Chancellor of NALSA, that is University of Law in Hyderabad, and retired Justice Dr. Satish Chandra is also joining us, former judge of the Allahabad High Court. Welcome all of you to Sansad Television. Let me begin with a very simple question, and I'll start with you, Dr. Zeenat. Why this controversy over hijab, and why now?
Well, it's a million-dollar question, and it has, I think, there is an ideological spectrum that has encompassed a wide range of dimensions which have fed directly into this debate. It is about preserving culture, the role of religion, the national identity, making a political statement, gender equality, and most of all, the politics of, I think, of a vote bank and a politics of surrounding an election. So I would like to begin with that. And unfortunately, this battle has been fought, by young, impressionable ladies who have, I don't know whether, but to my mind, it could be that, there has been a lot of patriarchal assertion in your development stages, and also the clerical views that have been brought in from during an integral part of their growth, and this is now obstructing their education.
Okay.
The matter is not all that great. Education is way above and far way above everything else. And to bring about an issue of this kind, and the third point I want to make it is that, I have been on several channels this morning, and I have found that there is no format as to what actually happened. Did these girls, were these girls wearing the veil 2 years ago and they were suddenly obstructed, or they suddenly began to wear the veil, and, what were the rules and regulations of that institution? And, we've had, multiple kind of understanding that have come down right from the ministry level to the college institute heads and to the girls themselves. So until and unless these facts are established, but I think the main one of the main thrusts is that that over the years there has been a lot of conditioning that this is the way we dress and this is the way we go to school, and that status quo also wants to be maintained.
Okay.
And one last point before I let go of this is that it has been a very sad state of affairs that a young girl on the campus has been ruthlessly attacked by a team of young men just because she wore this garment, and she felt so threatened. Because, I've seen those visuals again and again. She felt so threatened that, the first thing that came to her mind is what she said. And that was, I think, Muskan, that was brave of her. Now, how much, but also I want to understand, what are the politics involved in this entire scenario.
Okay.
Because in a school classroom, as when we were children and we went, all of us maintained a uniform and nobody had a problem with it. And
Indeed,
the Constitution of India is permitting you to dress the way you want, to choose the way to dress you want. If you want to wear a hijab or a sari or a salwar or whatever you want, no one is stopping you.
Okay. Well, that's a very significant point you're making, Dr. Zeenat. And when it comes to various aspects, the facts, of course, the case is sub judice. So the Karnataka High Court is, seized of the matter there. The hearing is going on. We'll have to wait and watch as to what the petitioners and the respondents both say and what the court responds to that as well. But you're right there. There are various aspects of this issue. It's not just religion. It's about law. It's about feminism. It's about education as well. I'd like to bring in, Professor Mustafa here. Professor Mustafa, how would you, describe the present situation and the controversy over the use of hijab in educational institutions, and also how is it being spelled out in terms of the protection of religious beliefs under the Constitution?
Thank you, Vishal. Having taught Constitution for several decades, I would wish that the religion goes out of public square. I would not be very, very happy to see that a secular, modern, progressive country is all the time discussing religion and religious symbols. Having said that, our Constitution does permit following religious practices. Now, young girls wanting to have hijab in a way surprises me. Because when I used to go to the university in Aligarh, there was absolutely no girl who was having hijab. Now these young girls wanting to have hijab, and today also the Honorable High Court asked, since when they are wearing hijab? I think this question is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Why it is irrelevant that say, till yesterday I was an atheist. Today I become a theist and I want to put on a turban or put on a cap or want to start my prayers from today. The Constitution will not say, oh, till yesterday you are an atheist, now you cannot practice your religion.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, since when they started is not a very, very relevant query for a teacher of constitutional law like me.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I feel that earlier the Orientalist authors and the Europeans have been putting veil and hijab as an oppression of women. They were looking at it as a kind of a design by the patriarchal society to control women. And that was so in many traditions, including Indian traditions. But lately I am observing that there is some kind of assertion coming from extremely young, vocal, liberated girls who want to make their choices. And therefore, to me, it is not basically a religious question.
Okay.
It is more a question of choice, a question of expression under Article 19, and a question of deciding. I know many Muslim women and girls telling me that if you tell us to put on a hijab, we will just not accept it.
Okay.
If someone else tells us not to have hijab, we will put it on. So young girls, probably in my opinion, are making a statement of their choice.
Okay.
And if it is a statement of their choice, then we have to see how far our law permits them that choice.
Okay. Now that brings me. That's a very important aspect which you brought in, Professor Mustafa, and I'd like to seek views from Dr. Zeenat as well on this. But before that, I'd like to bring in Justice Chandra here. Justice Chandra, on this question where Professor Mustafa, finished his response in terms of where does the law stand on that. Now, In terms of previous judgments, now there are conflicting judgments from Kerala High Court only on the issue of right of Muslim women to dress in a particular way or according to their religious beliefs. Where do we stand in terms of previous judgments and also vis-a-vis the interpretation of Article 25.1 and perhaps read with Article 25.2 as well?
Really, this issue, hijab or education in wheel, was a very minor issue and a local issue. But these politicians have made it an international issue, and they brought the religion in this issue. And in Washington Post and others, they said ki education in curtain, education in wheel, or so many articles they have started. And this issue was already discussed by the Kerala High Court in the case of the Fatima Tasmina versus State of Kerala, 6 December 2018. Judgment was delivered by the Justice A. Muhammad Mustaka, who was a Muslim judge. He had already given the judgment and discussed these things. And that judgment, no appeal was filed and attains the finality. And in that judgment, it was decided that the largest interest will supersede the individual interest. And they said that the state cannot interfere, the court cannot interfere in the affairs of the state. And educational institutions have the right, fundamental right to maintain the administration of their own. So that was already decided. And the institution will have to maintain the administration. In Anand's case versus Maharashtra, they also said that uniforms provides the sense of responsibility, sense of discipline.
Okay.
When youngsters are there, tomorrow these children or these bachchiyan, they will have to go to the army, paramilitary forces, they will obtain the visa, they will have to go get the passport. So all these views, all modern society, we are not in Afghanistan, we are in India, which is a secular country. So this is there. Now what is in the constitution, you rightly said, Article 14 that provides the equality. When there is a uniform code in classroom or in the school, then burqa can't be an exception or can't be a class itself. This is there. So equality for all.
Okay.
Article 25 prescribes the religion of freedom, and that is the absolute right. But hijab or burqa, that is the relative right and not absolute.
Okay, okay. That's a point, Justice Chandra. I'd like to take to both Dr. Zeenat and Professor here as well. Dr. Zeenat, I'll start with you. Is it part of the ERP, as and Professor Mustafa would understand that in terms of the essential religious practices, the test which is applied by the judiciary in various aspects, and Justice Chandra would also be aware of that. Is it Dr. Zeenat and Professor Mustafa? Is it part of the ERP? Will it pass? Does it pass the ERP test?
Do you want me to go first or Dr.
Yes,
Zeenat?
Professor Mustafa, I'd like to start with you.
I've been talking about it. My views are known.
Vishal, I think you have raised a pertinent question. There is a controversy. How should we decide the essential practices test? My position has been that the Supreme Court should not become clergy. And in the Sabrimala judgment, Justice Chandrachud quoted my article and noted that there are scholars who have objections to the essential practices test.
Okay.
And believe me that the acceptance of review of Sabrimala and reference of Sabrimala judgment, which was a bold statement of equality to which his lordship was making a reference, that the females were not allowed in the Sabrimala temple, and by this judgment they were allowed. But within a year and a half, Supreme Court has accepted that they will review the entire essentiality test. So as of now, Supreme Court itself is not clear how to determine essential religious practices.
Okay.
Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice has accepted the review, though no apparent error in the judgment was pointed out. 7 questions have been framed, including the question to which His Lordship Justice Chandra was making a reference. What is the interplay between 25 and 26 and other fundamental rights, particularly Article 40?
Okay.
So the point is that if you go by the inconsistent judgments of the Supreme Court. In some cases, Supreme Court have said that we will go by the scriptures. In other cases, the court have said we will not accept the superstitious practices. So there is a confusion, and the court has to resolve that confusion, how to decide essential religious practices.
Okay.
My position, Vishal, has been, and I have been writing a lot on this, that as a liberal progressive country, we may not permit even something which is in the scriptures. And that was the criticism I had leveled against Shaira Bano also. To say that the triple talaq is not there in Quran and therefore it is not an essential practice. I have said that if something is in Quran, say for instance, slavery, can we accept it as an essential Islamic practice or concede it? As a liberal, modern, progressive democracy, we will look at Article 25, which starts with subject to public order, health, morality, and other provisions of this part, which means other fundamental rights. So maybe something is there as an essential practice for a particular religion, is still a constitutional democracy may not allow it. And shouldn't allow.
That's a very a wonderful explanation coming in from you, Professor Mustafa. But yes, please.
The way courts have been interpreting essential religious practices, probably there is a case. Probably there is a case to say that covering head with a headscarf with face remaining open is an essential Islamic practice. Even though Dr. Zeenat Shaukat Ali is a better person because I am not a theologian.
That's exactly what I was about to do, Professor Mustafa. Bring in Dr. Zeenat here. Dr. Zeenat, your views there in terms of what is essential. Does it fall under the ERP criteria, the essential religious practices criteria? Of course, all these questions will have to be settled by the law of the land and the courts as well. They are seized of the matter. But for us to better understand, where do we stand?
Okay. So in my very humble opinion, religion itself is a very, very difficult subject to discuss because there are so many interpretations and so many perspective points of view. And, there are certain things that have been ingrained over the years that have today become very acceptable. But to someone like me who generally likes to question, and scholars like me who like to question and who want to question and understand what is going on, essential religious practices, according to me, what I have understood as a child and what I have been grown up with and what I have been teaching is the 5 pillars of Islam, which no one can dispute and say that, anything happens, there is no need for this, X, Y, or Z. There is no debate on that issue. As far as women's garment is concerned, you see, my personal understanding is that I look at history and tradition and culture. Now, if you look at the culture and the tradition of Arabia itself, you find that, in any kind of, in any region or continent or subcontinent, then there is a kind of a culture that prevails. So we find that for 2,500 years, over the years, there was a particular kind of a dress culture that was maintained that one finds in the statuettes of the period of time. I cannot get into more detail because this is very interesting and how it developed.
Indeed, but we don't have that much time. We'll have to understand in nutshell. If you could summarize for us.
Trying to get that to you in a nutshell. Now you see, these were the practices that prevailed, and also in Arabia, when the Prophet, may peace be upon him, was born and was teaching, there was this dress that women wore, which is recorded, in their books of poems and in their folios, where it is called the jilbab. It is called a jilbab, or it is called the khimar. And the khimar was a dress that was used, which went from the back of your head, and it came down, but the front of there was a big, huge slit in the front, so your private parts could be visible. Now, at that time, as time went on, in the 3rd or 4th year when the Prophet Muhammad was in Medina, And women used to go out to attend the offices of nature, and they went to, buy purchases in the market. A lady went to buy milk, and she was attacked. And immediately this verse was revealed that tell the prophet, verse number 33, surah number 33, verse number 59, that when you go out, tell your mothers, your daughters, your wives, all the Muslim women that they should cast a garment over them so that their chastity may be maintained, their modesty. The word is modesty and the word is decency. So that was what the general understanding was.
Okay.
There was no prescribed form of a dress. That this is the only way you wear it, and that is the only way you wear it.
Okay.
Is this a black gown that you're going to wear? Is it a white gown you're going to wear? Is it a yellow gown? There was no prescription. It was a general practice. And when it came to the interpretations of scholars who came in as the Quran was revealed, many interpretations came in to say that, when women dressed up, it could be on the custom of the land. Now, for example, it was Zamashkari, who was a very well-known translator. There was Imam Razi, and there was Kutubi. There were other people who were referred to. When they mentioned that this was a kind of dress which was meant to hide, and immediately after this verse, there was no punishment prescribed.
Okay.
So when I say there's no punishment prescribed at the end of it.
So the keyword, Dr. Zeenat, here is the custom of the land is also equally important. It's just not about, what is written or how it is being interpreted there as well.
That's where the interpretation came, and therefore it was said that, when we come to essential practices, there is a fard in Arabic, which is obligatory.
Okay.
And wajib. So, it was not known as, a wajib. It was not known as fardul and individual or fardul kifaya in a group.
Okay.
So it was not known as that. And therefore the interpreters came to this understanding that this dress, whatever dress you wore. Now, coming to the headgear, Professor, which is very interesting, that there are different scholars across the world. See, there is a clergy, clerical interpretation, which does not look at ijtihad. That means creative interpretation. And there is a group of people, scholars, who are very much Muslim and who examine this at the booth and go ahead to try to discover what would this mean. And when they said, when the Quran said that, you cover your bosoms, it did not specifically mention you cover your hair.
Okay.
So there are scholars like Professor Leela Ahmed from Harvard University, like Professor Khalid Ibn Abdul.
Well, that indeed is, that indeed is, what you're pointing out, Dr. Zeenat, is of course a clear way of, saying that there are various aspects of that as well. I'm afraid we're running short of time, but that's very interesting, the way you're describing that to us. And I'm pretty sure we can have a detailed discussion on this aspect later on as well. But before we bring this discussion to an end, since we have looked at various aspects, I'd like to bring in Justice Chandra again here. Justice Chandra, from the legal perspective, from the perspective of law of the land, as Professor Mustafa was also referring to, how do you see the entire situation and where we stand and, way ahead from here onwards? Of course, we'll have to wait for the court's verdict, which is seized of the matter.
Look, this religion and education I will prefer the education. Imparting education is the function of the state. State function means the public function. And that can be given in the private institutions. And as I said, that passport and other services, also the part of the law. So that is there, and they can start it. And Kerala Education Bill 1958 has discussed all these aspects.
Okay.
By the Supreme Court, they have discussed all these aspects. And they said that you can establish even the minority institutions and do whatever you like in madrasas, education institution. But when you are coming for the aid, financial aid, or you are coming for the affiliation to the university of those institutions or status, then it can be controlled.
Okay.
Condition can be laid down for affiliations, for getting the financial assistance. All these aspects are there.
Okay.
So this is now for the child, because they are the future. These girls are the future of the nation.
Okay.
To choose this religious aspects or the national aspects. As I told, they can go to the paramilitary forces abroad and do services.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Justice Chandra. Yes, we are running short of time, Professor Mustafa. But if you could, sum up in 60 seconds.
In today's arguments, now the girls have conceded ground. What they are asking that the dupatta they are having as part of uniform, which is of the same color as uniform, they be allowed to put it on their head.
Okay.
I believe if this is what their conscience dictates, then the court may take a favorable view.
Okay.
Because Mr. Kamath has also argued that in the Kendriya Vidyalaya, they are allowed to use the dupatta of the uniform to cover their head.
Well,
And
indeed, there are very detailed, detailed arguments which went on in the court on Monday. And Professor Mustafa, we'll have to wait for what the court says after hearing all aspects there. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, all three of you, Professor Mustafa, Dr. Zeenat, as well as Justice Chandra, for sharing your views and insights. Very interesting perspective being given by our panelists out there as far as the hijab controversy is concerned. Of course, there are various aspects of this particular issue, and it cannot be, looked and interpreted from one particular prism. We'll have to wait for the final verdict of the courts here, Karnataka High Court, which is seized of the matter, and the hearing is ongoing. We'll keep you updated on all those details as well, and come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.